Hey, can you guys hear me?
I can hear you.
As well.
Beth, can you hear me?
Hey, Andy, we can hear you.
Mark, MCCLOU.
Okay, great.
Woods Lane. That's right there. That's in Sharon. Yeah, the first, it all depends if you're on this side or this side of the road. Can we do it? Yeah,
That's good one.
I'll call Tom.
Call Tom.
It's his side. It's his.
Yeah, call Tom and ask him.
Hey, Jim, you can start whenever you're
We'll have to
ready.
put up a nicer post to make it look good.
Okay, we're gonna call the November 1st regular session meeting to order. First order of business is pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Second order of business would be to approve the regular session minutes of our last meeting on October the 18th.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second vote,
Yes.
yes. Andy, you got a vote there?
You can't vote.
Oh, he's not talking?
He can't vote.
Oh, he can't vote because he's voting.
Yeah.
Okay, speakers, is there any particular order we want to go in? Does anybody want to go first and have to go first? Talk, Spencer, I think?
Dave and Nathan, please first.
Dave and Nathan, you're up.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for having us. This is our annual MPDS update.
Oops.
Dave and Nathan, if you can hear us, we just lost you on our end.
See
Hey,
if that-
Dave, you're on. Are you on mute, Dave?
There he is. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. I clicked the Netflix button.
The Bachelor was not on that,
Oh, the Squid Game.
Sorry. Okay, put that away from me.
Green light, green light.
Hi, guys.
Can you hear us? All right, take it away. We think we got you all unmuted and everything now.
So are you hearing me now?
We hear you, but it's a very low volume.
Very, what can I do?
Yeah, I think it's, try this thing over here.
Give us a second. to
No.
adjust.
Nathan, can you talk for a sec?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so it's,
Dave's got all the important things to say. That's the frustrating thing.
Actually, I think Dave's laugh just came through kind of loud.
okay.
Did you hear
that? Is that
There,
better?
there you are. There he is.
All right, not me.
I'll get back, I'll jump back here then.
Gee, I'm the wrong guy to mess with this.
So,
All right.
so this is our annual sojourn out to all the trustees and the permit holders, basically the co-permittees on the new MPDS permit. So we have a new permit, new 5-year permit that came out just end of 2020, actually. But we're in the midst of it now, and we're updating some documents like the stormwater management plan to kind of reflect any of the new changes that are in the new permit. With that said, I'll say there wasn't that many changes in the new permit. One of the big changes had to do with the pollutant loading, the TMDL situation with the Great Lakes. EPA had to apply that pretty much across the board to the state permit. So we have some pollutant loading issues and things to meet for impaired waters around the state. So what does that mean? Well, most of it is a lot of outreach. So what we're doing with a lot of our articles that come out to you guys is to include some of that language about TMDLs and pollutant loading and what that means. We're kind of introducing that across the board in all our outreach to kind of get that message out there and get people kind of familiar with that idea. So that's probably the biggest lift in the new permit is that TMDL aspect, and we're starting to approach that with our outreach. With that said, I hope you're getting our outreach materials, use them in your newsletters to your residents. That's the point of it, really. We hope that you use that and we get that education aspect out to our constituents and get that message out there, and some of that language and that learning that goes along with that. So let's see what else. We just passed Stormwater Awareness Week. I hope you did something to observe that. If not, just keep that in mind for next year. This happens about the same time every year. We'll continue with that third week in October to do Stormwater Awareness Week. That really is your opportunity to kind of take some ownership of that and reach out to your residents as well and do something during that time. We usually have some events and some service days planned during that time. So feel free to join in or advertise those to your community. I think that's all I have. Oh, training. The other aspect is staff training and that MPDS outreach as well. So Ian, I see you there. You're getting that information, I hope, on staff training and getting that taken care of, but be sure to do that, as well as maintenance of your, or monitoring and inspections of your facilities. That's the other kind of good housekeeping part that's come up in the new permit as well. So feel free to contact me with any of that kind of information. Nathan, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you and let you go.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions for Dave?
Dave, I think we're gonna do a project that we did this year, next year as well. The medallion, is that
The
correct?
no dump sticker project.
Yeah.
We have to do this October, just before Stormwater Awareness Week. Placing those markers on the catch basins.
Yeah.
That is a proper project. Call it.
Went around his street several times.
They look they look very nice and sturdy.
Good job.
So from my standpoint with the health department, just to continue to remind folks that we do take complaints and referrals as far as illicit discharges. Anytime somebody has concerns or questions as far as a septic system, or if they're questioning a discharge or anything along that line, please let us know. We can investigate. With continuing to work at a public health department during a global pandemic, as you can imagine, has been very interesting. We had some downtime where we were not out in the field conducting our usual inspections, but we've been back out in the field since about May, I think, back to regular hours and times, and doing significant amount of investigations and just operating our operational and maintenance program. So with that, like I said, just if people have concerns or questions, please just send them our way, or just send us those referrals, and we'd be more than happy to follow up and make sure that what's going out there to the waters of the state is what's supposed to be. So I guess with that, I would just say, does anybody have any questions? Or
Hey, Nathan.
yes, sir.
Your department was getting into a GIS project, or you had a unit that was starting to do GIS work. You know the status of that, because we were hoping to maybe
Sure.
get in that a little bit.
Generally speaking, it's folks from Dave's agency, from Soil and Water, that do the primary, as far as the role of data collection. That's something that we've partnered with them over the past several years. We've got, I believe, Dublin is the one area that we are looking to map before the end of the year. As far as particular questions or ideas, Josh Garver with Soil and Water is the primary contact with Dave's group, but that's something that we've done a fair amount of. We've also done some GIS mapping of systems in primarily in Brown Township over the summer, where there's a petition ditch area where we've gone out and marked system locations in anticipation of the Franklin County Engineer's Office doing a ditch improvement or a drainage improvement project. So yeah, we're looking to do more as far as the townships. To this point, it's been primarily incorporated areas. We've done a significant amount of mapping in Dublin. We've done some in Hilliard, Upper Arlington, southeastern part of the county. But yeah, if you guys would look to have us do that with Soil and Water, we'd certainly like to start that in your area.
So who would we get together besides Josh? Yourself?
Yeah, probably Josh and myself. There's another gentleman that does the actual field work. His name is Aaron. Is it Hebert? Is that how you pronounce his name? So it's spelled like Herbert, Herbert, but he's the one that has done the primary part of the actual mapping. But yeah, I would say reach out to Josh, and maybe we could all sit down and talk about the particulars and where you'd like to start.
Yeah. Thank you.
I was told today that the Dublin area is done. So
Oh, is it? Okay.
There
I thought
may
we're gonna do
be
some more. Okay.
Yeah, I think we're finished on at least the Dublin portion.
Okay, very good.
Thank you, everybody, for your time. Appreciate being able to talk with y'all, and if you've got any questions, feel free to contact either one of us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Good
We'll
night.
see you.
All right, fiber connections.
Good evening, members of the board. I'm David Madison with the City of Hilliard. I'm the Economic Development Director. We have a couple slides to present. Here with me, I have Dwayne Powell. He's the city's IT Director. I'll kind of start with why this fiber network may be relevant to Cary Township, and then I'll kind of talk a little bit about why the city ultimately made the investment that it has so far, and then Dwayne will go in and talk a little bit about what the implementation has looked like and really what we've been able to accomplish to date. So, so why you might care is with approval that we had at our last city council meeting, we're going to be constructing an extension of our fiber optic network from our corporation limits close to Worthington, and that's going to involve kind of going in front of a couple of the neighborhoods that are in Perry Township right now. And one of the potential benefits of that could be that because of who is on our network, there could be additional internet service providers that could either provide internet service through fiber optic connection or just more competition. And this kind of leads into why we started this whole project. This was really about 3 years ago. I hadn't been with the city of Hilliard very long. And we had a big issue in our community where we'd have monopolies of certain carriers over certain business sectors within our city. So you'd think just being in a pretty big metro area that this wouldn't be an issue, but we had a lot of businesses that were subject to carrier monopolies, and that hurt us on both pricing, it hurt us on both quality of service. And then the city itself and community partners like the school district had the same issues. We were subject to really whatever pricing that, for us, it was whoever AT&T wanted to charge us. We had issues with being able to really ramp up our service in a cost-effective way. You hear a lot of buzzwords like smart city and connected infrastructure. Without fiber, that's something that you can't really accomplish. So something simple as having more machine learning within your traffic signals, all that requires a fiber optic connection. So our city council, in part because of the need for this as an economic development initiative, received a $1.25 million loan from the Franklin County Infrastructure Bank. Their big target is fiber optic expansion. We also funded the balance of this project with our city capital dollars. So we launched this project a few years ago now and are really just kind of kicking off and getting near full implementation of what we will do. And Dwayne will talk a little bit about that. But this, like I said, allows us to accomplish a bunch of different things, alleviate some of the carrier monopolies that we had, open up competition so we have better choice and better service and better product for our business community. And then the hope is that this can eventually be a service that we can start offering to our residents. And like I said, we're working with partnerships with our school district, our township as well. And again, just hoping that this is something that is going to be on the forefront of our economic development initiative. So in this process, this was really being driven by economic development. We were able to bring Dwayne on, who had experience with AT&T, so he understands the implementation of this type of infrastructure nationwide and how important it is. He can talk a little bit about the implementation and what we've been able to accomplish with this so far.
Good evening, members. Thanks for having us. So over the course of the last year and a half, we've been able to implement 44 miles of fiber across the city of Hilliard. And the next slide will actually give you a really high-level map of what we've accomplished. That has allowed us to interconnect with two other municipalities. One we have a connection with, and that's Grove City, and we're hoping to in our negotiations in our build north towards you guys interconnect with another municipality. The reason for that really is to bring more fiber miles to not only our partners but to the businesses and citizens. So one of the things that you have very close to here is called the Ohio Internet Exchange.
I'm sorry, it's not switching on the screen.
If you're not familiar with that, what an Internet Exchange point is, it's where all the networks come together and all the providers and all the services. So we saw a great example of Netflix here that was up earlier. Obviously, the further you are away from Netflix, the content, the slower it is and you get the twirly. So you want that content as close as you can. The interesting thing about Columbus and Ohio is that a significant amount of our traffic up till very recently would have to go through Chicago or Atlanta to go anywhere else in the world. The Ohio Internet Exchange has brought that exchange point and its content providers closer. So as latency and things become more important, it's right here in our backyard. So that's one of our reasons for our build here. One of the other exciting things, and David touched on a little bit, that we've been able to do is with the instrumentation of our traffic lights. And we've seen significant improvement very quickly in the timing of how we can synchronize cemetery. If anybody's ever traveled Cemetery Road from the freeway all the way down, it's a big congestion point for us. And we can centrally manage that now. Just the last 30 days, we've been able to make a lot of changes and be able to watch that traffic on camera from City Hall and make some decisions. So there's been some improvements. And for as carrier competition alone, our price for internet, just for the city services, has dropped, saved ourselves about $30,000 a year. So we're hoping to bring those types of opportunities to the rest of the businesses within the community. We operate as a public-private partnership. I mean, we're building the fiber. We're not lighting it. We're not the service provider. We're letting private carriers come in and use our network, use the fiber optic to service the end business or the end residential user. So that's really important to us. We're not in the business of becoming an ISP. We're not in the business of competing, but we can direct the capital towards our business district, towards our citizens, and allow other carriers to come in and provide that service at a much reasonable price. And there's competition, so hopefully the customer service is a little bit better. Some of the interesting things that's happened that we haven't been able to really forecast that's happened is because of the connectivity, we were able to build a private cellular network within our community. And we really did that to help with COVID and some of our underprivileged kids that we couldn't quite get to their house. So we were able to buy the equipment and get to those kids and offer them free internet during the COVID when everybody was home. Two technologies that's kind of resulted from that really quickly was managing our sidewalks and the capital investment. There's literally hundreds of miles of sidewalks. How do you manage that? You walk it and record it. It's the old method. We had an intern here this summer that did that. They got through 2 neighborhoods and documented that. We worked with the technology company, development company. We were able to develop a cart attached to the network wirelessly, tied to our GIS. And that one same neighborhood that took most of the summer to document, whether it was sloped or curved or the concrete was busted, we did it in an hour and a half. So as fast as you could walk it, we could document the condition of that sidewalk. So that's a continued development and it ultimately savings to the city. The other thing that hopefully benefits all the community for this regional connection is the drone program that the same company we're working with for emergency response. One of the big problems with fire and police, right, is you get a 911 caller, it's very unreliable in what they tell you. They're nervous, they're excited. So the first responder may not have all the equipment, have the right personnel in place. We're working on a program within a minute and a half, the drone flying close to 200 miles an hour. When the 911 call comes in, we can dispatch that drone with cameras, assess the situation, and then deploy the resources that would help the 911 caller. And we don't have to depend on that reliability. Where the technology comes into place is in order to fly that drone without being line of sight is we've been able to build a virtual air traffic control dome over the city and track that with cameras. So right now the camera on our police and fire station, we can track planes landing at Wright Pat and John Glenn and the Ohio State Airport. So we're hoping for SCC clearance to operate that drone program. So with that, that's really been some of the exciting things we've done with our fiber network, and we appreciate being able to talk to you tonight and building through your city. We do our best not to be disruptive through your township. So Any questions you guys have?
Thank you for saying township.
Yeah.
I know Andy probably has something
Sure.
on the line, but I just real quick, a couple of things. What is the general terms of your loan with the Franklin County Infrastructure Bank?
Yeah, so we, of course, got the loan before COVID hit when prices bottomed out, but it was still below 2%, and it's unsecured. So they're really good about not doing on the full faith and credit of the city. So they're really flexible on their loan terms. It's a big appeal for us.
We were gonna take it from Joe's savings account, but that's okay.
I do have a question, since you couldn't get the other map, can you kind of talk about the route? you're planning on
That's
taking?
exactly what I was about to ask.
Yeah,
So,
Andy can see it, but I can't get it up on the screen.
Do your best to explain it.
So we're coming Britton Parkway up across the Scioto, down Riverside, 161, up 23. So I can actually.
Okay.
So past, kind of past Sawmill Road, down 161
Right.
outside,
Right.
outside Riverside.
And most of that's aerial, so we won't be digging up your township to do that. So there are some underground, but most of that will be.
Okay.
There you go.
It does open up potential neighborhoods like Riverside
Right.
for the competitive thing, not so much Worthington Hills because of the distance for the main line, but Brookside and those would definitely be a possibility in the future.
The other piece of this too is there's been a lot of discussion about being like a regional entity, but there really wasn't a lot of meat behind what does it mean to be regional. And so with the partnership that Dwayne has been working on with Grove City, and then as I say, we're talking to Westerville too, but that would leave over 200 route miles of fiber of true regional collaboration that really be a benefit to a lot of people.
Well, the good thing, if it's aerial, obviously that's a much faster install, so that's fantastic. Also unsightly, sadly, I still want to get the fiber buried in my house, but.
Well, to a home, but typically
yes.
it is.
Yes, well, no, I understand.
You're going from Riverside Drive on 161 clear to High Street.
Yeah,
So,
Ecologics is over here on Shared Court.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah. I always mess up the name of the I have to stop and think how to say share.
So are you able to talk about what carriers have come in to hop onto the fiber at this point?
To name them, I really couldn't name them, but most of them you probably wouldn't heard of. They're not the major carriers. The benefit of this partnership is by bringing them in is they're typically carriers that's not going to invest the $3 or $4 million in our community.
Right.
But they can invest a smaller amount.
Right.
By just attaching to our network, and then they can continue forward. So.
One of them is very public just because they sent a lot of postcards, like Bresco Broadband is an example.
It's not that we don't, we're leaving that up to them. In
I
our
understand.
agreement.
I understood when I asked the question that you may not be able to share. I was just gonna ask it anyway.
Be careful, she's in that industry.
I work for Lumen. My client is AT&T. I'm on the wholesale side. So
Okay.
I was just curious who the.
Well, and as you know, AT&T really just got back into the networking business just here recently, right? They thought they were in the Hollywood business for quite some time. And that's been kind of a detriment to them, really from a network side. And so they cherry picked where they went. If you've got a bunch of high-rise buildings, they'll be happy to build to you. The local mom and pop shop, they'll build to you, but the capital investment's on you. And you get the luxury of paying that off in 24 months. So you figure an average lateral build into a business is going to cost you anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000, and then spread that over 24 months. That's a pretty big bill for a small business that's growing. So larger business, maybe not such a big deal, but that's what we're after, is to help the neglected really businesses and some of the homes and our homeowners that really have been overlooked through the years. Thank you.
Great.
No, thank you.
I appreciate
Thanks
it.
very much.
Would you, it's working.
Yeah,
Would you be able to send, or is it in our Dropbox and I missed it?
it should be in your Dropbox.
Oh, there it is. I see it.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Andy, did you have anything?
No, the only question I had, if we connected a place like Brookside, what's the process for doing that?
So if you were looking to connect a residential community, so there's still capital investment to get into that neighborhood, right? So we'd have to look at that and do a design of what that, basically the right of way or the right of ways are, and then how to best egress into the building, into each residence. But then, the attachment to the infrastructure that we're running through there is fairly easy from that standpoint.
So how do we start to have that conversation? What do you need from us?
Send me the neighborhood, exactly the neighborhood, I could start that for you.
And hey, Michelle or Chet, with the renovations coming to Brookside, have they talked about, I'm assuming they're just moving along with the thought that, eventually they'll have fiber, but, have they talked about, fiber to the school, like the elementary school? And is there any way that the school would pay for that, to pull it down to the school, and then at least part of it's paid for?
I think the school has fiber. It's just not all of the residents have fiber. They haven't run through the neighborhood.
And keep in mind that fiber
Thank you.
is probably the providers. Right?
Sure. Oh, of course.
Right,
Of course.
so you can't, if you go to another carrier, right, that's kind of a little bit of the monopolistic hold that they have on it. So once you pay that $7,000 to $10,000 lateral into your building, and you say, you know what, every time I call, they never answer the phone, they don't help with my service, they keep raising my rates, I'm gonna call somebody else, I'm gonna call CenturyLink. You get to repeat that process, right?
No, because then CenturyLink would just buy it off of AT&T and
Yeah.
reprovision all the same fiber. Actually.
But they would still charge you for it. Nine times
Not
out
for
of
the
10.
bill,
9 times out of 10.
because
they're
it's
still
already
gonna charge
built,
you
it's
for it.
first in,
Yeah.
but I understand.
Well, we'll get you some information.
Sure.
I'll work with you to make sure we copy Michelle and Andy and Mr. Roper on it, and we'll start having a conversation.
Be happy to. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good information. Appreciate it.
Public comment period, Brookside.
Our actual meeting is tomorrow, so I don't have anything new at this point.
What the hell's?
Apparently Woods Lane was the winner on the spooky road, so. So check with Sean about that.
A little bit.
Okay, it did have a spooky thing at the entrance. It was the one, yeah.
Yeah, it had
Yeah.
the big like archway or whatever
Yeah.
across from
Yeah.
Jimmy's.
It's a new one. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got 3 houses on.
yeah. So, their meeting, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, their meeting is the 10th, Wednesday, the 10th. So beyond that, I don't have anything. Andy, do you know of anything?
No.
Epcot and Ravello.
Their meeting's coming up later this month, and I keep forgetting that
I believe it's on the 18th at 1.
18th. Yeah, first time.
Zoning.
I just need a motion to declare the property owned by Naomi Taylor located at 987 Larkstone Drive in Perry Township, Franklin County, a nuisance.
I'll make that motion.
Second,
Vote,
yes.
yes.
Anything on Thompson Street, Michelle?
No, and we can take that off. It's.
Oh, it's done.
Been approved, and we don't have any dates.
Okay.
When they're gonna start.
That would have put the apartments.
It's, the off of 161, because we need more traffic.
Road department. They don't have anything on the agenda tonight.
Mark that down, by the way. We didn't ask for anything.
The leaves appear to be coming down a little slower. It seems like it picked up here lately, but we've always had, our trees were almost always down close to Halloween, and
I think it's supposed to freeze tonight, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Somebody
That's
says
gonna
supposed to
be
get in the
the-
20s tonight,
Yeah.
and it'll probably knock down a lot of leaves.
it just seems like we're wrong.
System.
It is.
It's gonna go, it's gonna bleed longer than typically pick up on,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Let's hope they all fall in the next 2 weeks.
One
It's gonna be a light snow.
can help.
Let's
Oh,
hope for
now
that
you
too.
No, you said-
Fire and EMS.
Fire and EMS reports. I just sent them the mail to put in the Dropbox tonight. Worthington for the month of October had 21 calls for service in Perry Township. Upper Arlington had a total of 7. One was at Epcon and Roman Alien Hughes, and it was actually at Epcon. The rest of them were all traffic crashes.
Has that been like 2 service calls the whole time?
Yeah, I think since that's been officially,
Right.
I think there's only been 2, maybe 3 at the most. So,
Just keep on going, chief of the police.
I really don't have anything unless I wants to make a donation to the police department budget. I would be more than willing to accept. I'm just.
Bro, you spent all the money already.
I don't have anything.
Anything for the development director?
Ongoing projects, but nothing of any major significance.
He will be. We were expecting him at 7:15, actually.
Okay. Let's jump to you then.
Alrighty, ODOT 161 corridor study, there's, Chet, have you seen anything new other since the last time? I haven't. Okay, facilities we'll be talking about there when Mike Lusk gets here. The KCC landscaping, I'm gonna go ahead and take that off. I've just asked John Petrosi to make sure that if they're not taking care of the property, let us know as soon as possible. Keep an eye on it at least a couple times a month. And that's all I have.
Do you want to go over that call we had today? With, yeah, EMH&T.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
Is that the bank?
Yeah, no, we got a call today, we got a call last week from Mike Brown, who's son of a friend of mine. But anyway, he works for EMH&T. He's got a project with Friendship Village. They want to do a SUP, shared use pathway from Friendship Village to somewhere near Martin Road, which is in Dublin. And part of that, there's a parcel or 2 that's ours, owned by Friendship Village, actually. And so they want to check the box. So they talked to us first of all. So we said, well, we'll listen in, which was the call today. It was Columbus and Dublin. It has a price tag of $1.78 million. They had us slated for $500,000, by the way. It was at ODOT.
Yeah, with ODOT.
Township. And so we made it very clear to them, we're very supportive of your project, but it doesn't do anything for our residents who are further south on Riverside Drive. If you were to expand it to our residents in Rhode Island, then that'd be another story. We'd have a greater conversation, but so that's just an FYI there. I think the cost of it, Joe, has to do with there's a ravine and they're having to do a bridge over that ravine. It's significant. And I think they've gotten to the point where they realize they can't do this locally, that they're going to have to go for federal funds.
Yeah, I think that was really the intent of the call, to see if there was any chance to do local funding. Thanks for thinking of that. So, okay.
Fiscal officer.
Oh, really? Request a motion for approval of payroll and disbursements.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Is Lusk out there?
I'm gonna call him right now and see if he's out.
I think there might be somebody sitting in a car out there.
Oh, okay.
It's shared use path. Why is it only going to Martin? Did they say why?
They're connecting what exists there at Martin to Bridge Park.
Yeah.
Everything is Bridge Park.
Yeah, that they're just trying to get
They're just trying to drive.
bike path up through there.
Got it. Okay.
And for
So you can walk from Friendship Village to
We're
Bridge
ready,
Park?
yeah.
with this extension, you
Yeah.
can.
Wow.
Has that been brought up to the, because I swear somebody brought that up at Epcon, that they were trying to see if they could get their walkway connected all the way up so they could walk.
That's what we talked to them about.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, the people at Epcon have brought that up, I think, in one of their meetings or National Night Out, maybe something to that effect. They had talked about getting their sidewalk extended or something.
Pay another $2-3 million, you probably get there.
Yeah. So I said, I wonder what they were talking.
Take them right through. There's a little path already there that can connect.
Yeah.
So, while we're waiting for Mr. List to come in, just circling back on that fiber deployment, you know, the only way that proves out financially is if we have a business, you know,
We have a business.
if we had business in that area. Because what we need fiber, yes, but we need carriers on that fiber to actually bring the finished services to us, the streaming services, the internet access, all of that stuff. If we're just doing that neighborhood, you know, the neighborhood.
Yeah,
Yep,
I
that
don't
didn't work so
think
well.
we're asking for anything from us. It just leaves us an opportunity for down the road.
Well, and hopefully, you know, the carriers, whoever,
Right.
you know, take that fiber that's right outside the door and pull it in. I mean, it's been on AT&T's list for years and they just haven't done it.
What
No.
happened?
Fiber down the bay, isn't there?
I think to the school.
I think it goes all the way through. What might be just to the school?
I mean,
We
I'm
have-
sorry, let me rephrase. I mean, it doesn't go connect down to the houses. It's just to the school.
Yeah, I remember when they
Just serve the
directional
school
board down
through.
the bay.
Yeah.
This is a
Right,
real
try
personal
again.
conversation.
They talk about how some trunk lines, Michelle, can go in at a later date if certain carriers decide.
Well, absolutely. I just mean like, I don't think it's something that we want to pony
On
up
that
cash
property,
for.
it's come back.
Yeah, he's got to
That's
detach
all.
first, but yes,
So,
So the fiber might benefit him.
Mr. Mike Klaus.
True.
Those few
Architect.
businesses there.
We've heard a lot about you.
Oh, yeah.
All good.
Perfect time.
You can talk
to my wife.
We'll go to the beginning of the presentation.
oh, sure. Well, that's, oh, this is what, oh, you know what? I'm going off what Andy sent me. I must have opened up the wrong one then.
So John Andy's asked me to kind of go through the process that we've
Yeah.
been through, and what our thinking's been and how we got to where we are today, so.
Is this the one, it's the one that you sent me the other day, right?
Power-
Yeah, okay.
I know it's in the Dropbox. if you-
Yeah, he was thinking there was an updated one, so he emailed me, but
There was
I've
one
got,
update, yeah.
there
We
is?
need some help there.
There was one update.
I need a lot of help, Jim.
Could you have Mary help her?
You'd probably be better off.
It's an inside joke.
Okay.
Sorry.
Dropbox.
I mean, if you're gonna just, you know, set up that softball,
It's like a file folder. Holds everything.
We call that a slow pitch.
Okay, are we good here?
There we go.
Okay, this is what I was in the Dropbox, okay.
Okay.
Just- By the
So-
way, my van, that's my van,
I
and I
know.
haven't had it for like 10 years.
I was like, wait a minute, I remember that.
That's what Google had.
Right.
So, you know, we mentioned there might be some people here from the public, so
No, we're good.
you're all good, yeah. So
Yeah.
you know the buildings 1, 2, and 3. So we can go to the next one.
Okay.
So, you know, that's the existing building. Chief says, you know, his guys are on top of each other, so I wanted to.
Oh. Very good.
I gotta say, maybe laugh less. I thought that's kind of funny.
So then we go to the next one. And Chief kind of laid out his wish list, all the things he wanted, including what he wanted it to look like. We're not gonna do that. So,
The Charlie Brown theme, I thought worked. Just saying.
so then we, from here, we looked at this. What this didn't tell us was what the relationships were and how big rooms had to be and the details. So we went ahead and developed, next slide,
Mhm.
you know, so this is the building number 2, and this is what we're looking at for the police department, this section here. And next slide. So we started out by doing what we call block plan or a bubble diagram. So it was just really to understand what the relationships were, so we met on this a couple of times, I think, made changes, talked about what was important and how things might work. So, but we we really do. The green area kind of represented support areas. The blue areas, police related matters, and the pink areas were more involved with prisoners or supporting that part of it. So we kind of identified that we could still have other support services, a large meeting room, exercise weight room, possibly a building 3. So I think part of this is we're not gonna get everything we want here, but there's some things that we talked about that could go here or building 3. And so we're still kind of talking through how those things would work. So we're really kind of focused mostly on just making the police function work. So we can go to the next slide. So yeah, that was the layout that we met on last week. So I did send you an update of this. So we can, that first slide you had up, I think was the updated one.
Okay, probably was. Let's see if I can get back up there.
Yeah. So it originally was at a corridor through here, but we couldn't get all the lockers we wanted. We wanted 24 lockers in the men's locker room and 5 in the women. So we didn't have a public restroom. So what we were able to do is make this an accessible public restroom. And by using that corridor, we were able to get everything into the locker room. So let's just walk around the plan. So main entrance here, administrative offices, room for 3 sergeant stations. We don't anticipate that they'll all be in there at one time. 2 lieutenant stations, chief of police, file server. This is the existing mechanical room. Squad room with, and we're showing just a sink and a refrigerator, and we could put a table or something in here. We have a room here with glass sliding doors, so it still remains open, but yet we can shut that if I think you said the sergeants go in there to run.
Well, no, that would be the workstations for officers when taking reports. If they gotta make phone calls or follow up,
Okay,
they can close the door if there's something going on out.
yeah. The detective bureau is here, and then we created a space for a sally port so that if a prisoner comes in, they can come in here. They can go to an interview room, they can get ID'd, ref, and then 2 holding cells, 2 interview stations. We got an equipment room here, armory. We originally was trying to get 2 spaces for vehicles, but we just couldn't fit the armory in. Then we created a room over here for evidence. So the way this would work is the officer would come here and have a counter, place the evidence on. So this would be a supply cabinet where he could get supplies out. This would be a pass-through locker that the, what is this position?
The property officer.
Property officer would be able to pull it and store the evidence. So with that, is there any questions on?
Sure. First of all, thank you for doing this. Appreciate your. I know you've been instrumental in the conversations that take place. This is maybe, well, first of all, so what is left of building 2 as it is today would be for the road department to maintain vehicles?
Correct.
Okay. And Chief, does this do, I'm gonna channel in English in me right now. Like real scary. But, so does this accommodate your force as you see it today, as well as what you may see it 10 years from today?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, some of these, we have like 3 workstations here. I don't think that's.
Building
No, it's
2.
Building 2. They're laying, building their needs onto building 2.
Okay. Okay.
Is that correct?
Correct.
That's building two.
Yeah, this
Okay.
space, we would just totally gut it out.
Okay,
And,
got you. Sorry.
So what kind of? Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, I was just thinking, I was thinking a couple of things. One is what would go in building 3, maybe down the road, you were talking about like a workout place or something like that. You probably can't squeeze a shower in here. If somebody needs to take a shower
You mean in the,
in the locker room.
there is.
There's showers.
Yeah, there's showers.
yeah,
Where's
these,
that?
right here.
Okay.
These are showers for men.
Yeah, there's one on the female side, one on the male side.
Gotcha, all right. What could you do with building number, the current building? Three?
Well, I think we're working through that right now. And,
There's a lot of things that we're trying to do and looking at this whole overall phasing plan. The gym, some other auxiliary uses that don't need to be every day that are easily accessible. And then trying to build that into a long-range plan as to what can or cannot be done with building 3 and with transportation, road department, everything else. So we're taking one piece at a time of what we've got. So with this, and I think you've got other slides that talk about the bay over here. And so there's a couple other ideas that are coming up here that he'll go into.
So the other thing I wanted to just kind of interject is we understand that the ripple effect, I mean, obviously we're displacing the road department, but ultimately building 3, we think we can retrofit it to accommodate near term. And remember, this isn't going to happen overnight. I mean, we could phase this, we could, do it depending on the overall cost, but the ripple effect is going to go into building 3. One of the things that I think ultimately, if we didn't have, from Dublin and the Seawit, but it would be removal of building 3 and then basically building a I don't know, a steel building, for lack of better terms, that Ian could pull his trucks into, and it would basically take away the need for the road department to utilize building 2. Now they still would need it, but that's sort of the ripple effect. Then the other thing that we did as part of the plan was we kind of looked at those uses that we didn't want to, that we could accommodate in other areas. We talked about a weight room, we talked about conference. One of the big things was conference space. And, everybody needs meeting space, but that was sort of the next part that Mike's going to go over. Is throughout this process, we also saw that there are other unused areas of the township, and could we utilize those unused areas for meeting space and that, so we don't have to have meeting space in here, which you will, like the squad room, I still think needs a little bit of work. I think, it's an open space. We could do some really unique things there to create a meeting room. But that was one of the things that we didn't want to do, is create things in this space that isn't police that we could accommodate in other areas.
Hey, Andy. First of all, I hope your evening's going well tonight. But we love it. So can you, I know Mike has some more slides and I want to make sure he goes through them, but at some point in time, can you talk about the quote unquote, the parking issue?
Yeah, that's going to take some work. I'm still waiting for Mount Carmel to send me their, the drive that they're utilizing off of Sawmill. And we're going to have that off of, but I wanted to make sure that the inside of this building, like everybody had, we're okay with the inside, because that's, inside's going to drive outside. And I want to make sure that everybody's good with the operations of the police station. And then we can start looking at the outside. I personally don't think we're going to have problems with parking, just from what I've seen on the overall site. but it is gonna modify probably the striping plan, not so much like site work, so to speak, but just different striping plan for what we have right now.
Thank you.
So I'm just trying, oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I reviewed the drawings that Carmel submitted to Dublin, et cetera, and it appear, I agree with Andy, I don't think parking is going to be an issue for us, the way they've got that currently laid out. The easements that originally were created would have caused a significant problem, but those easements were cleaned up and altered at a later date, and that alteration actually assists us in keeping the bulk of our traffic along that property.
Just to be clear, I mean, the parking that we have out there now,
Well, when you say out there now,
I'm sorry, the parking spaces that exist out there right now. As
Along the field.
along the field,
right,
how much of that, based upon what you've seen, that will not be able to be used? Is it like 5 feet or is it no feet? I mean, it's all.
well, what happened was the original easement came down both ways. What they did was they went in and they altered it, so now the easement comes in and dives into their property.
Okay.
That's the cleanup that was done. So that opened up all, if the original was there, it would have wiped out all part.
We have a site plan.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay,
PowerPoint.
sorry to digress.
Okay, just gonna get back to it. Okay, next one.
Right.
I'm sorry, the top.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so that's the easement there.
That's this is the easement line, the dotted line right here is the easement line, that's how the easement goes. So the current plan that they've got is showing this coming in like this and diving in here. So I think they've maintained pretty much all of that parking there. And then what needs to be altered, obviously, and this is a pretty wide easement. So the question is whether these go away or they stay, but even if these can be moved up to accommodate, and then they're picking up, they actually show parking replacing within that easement area. So they're very comfortable at this point with their preliminary design, saving as much parking as we have. This is all maintained, 100%, all of that parking. So.
Well, the other thing we talked about is that the fuel tank could move back here.
Right.
So we've got a lot of space in here to play with the.
Yeah, that does kind of break up that whole
You
open
could do
row.
here, you know, and or out here, or come in and park that way.
How
So
much
I don't
does
know
it
if
cost?
those end up being garages though.
I'm
working on that.
Okay.
yeah.
So let me ask Joe, I mean, I'm sorry. So these parking spaces right here, which is basically the first series of parking until we get to that, those would go away.
I can't guarantee you that because we don't have a dimensional plan. That's what we're trying to get from them. So it appears that this is coming in this way, really tight, and then there's popping out an entrance into our facility off of this.
Okay.
Okay, so we don't have that dimension, but worst case scenario,
The worst
those
thing,
are probably the only ones that are in jeopardy. Like you said, that area.
And chat, just so if you see where the fuel tanks are and the garage doors to building number 1, what I envision is that would actually, you would basically park a row of parking on one side, and instead of everything facing the building, it would run parallel to the building. So you'd run a bay of parking on one side, a bay of parking on the other side. So you'd make up some of that parking right there in front of the township offices. And then doing the same thing where the future police building is then parking, parking cars, again, parallel to the buildings, not perpendicular to them as we have now. And then obviously some of the parking that the road department's doing out in front of the police station would go to building 3. So again, we're just kind of manipulating parking. We're just moving around. And then plus, I think we were all kind of understanding that the asphalt was going to need to be replaced at some point. that we would then come in and restripe that. But it's not really manipulating too much of the site. It's just restriping the asphalt that we have right now.
Okay. The goal is to hopefully get the drawings in here and prior to anything being permitted or approved through Dublin is working out with them the replacement of the parking.
Yeah, if you did the multiple, just like what you're saying, Andy, in front of what is currently the police, there's a lot of empty space there too, right? If that becomes, yeah.
Yeah, we don't, I tell you, we don't, I mean, outside of the parking that runs angular, and that's also another thing is the angular parking. Angular parking is always less efficient than 90-degree parking. So you're going to gain some spaces by restriping that whole thing to a 90-degree instead of an angular. So
Right.
I mean, like,
we just don't use we have a lot of asphalt, but we don't use it particularly well with parking in mind. So that's the reason why I don't have a lot of heartburn over the parking that's going to be displaced.
It ends up pivoting, so it's like anything you see in front of a store, right? Or,
Yeah.
that they're all side kind of going
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
So then you make that up, right?
like where do you, I'm not sure what you're referring to, like which side, I'm sorry.
Well, I mean, so either in front of the future police or the current police, you go sideways.
Remember, the service vehicles have to get.
Yeah,
Oh, in the,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Front of the garage
yeah,
and
you don't want to
behind.
put anything in front of the cruiser, but
Okay.
in front of the future police building, the issue you have there is you have garages on the front, so you can only do a couple spots.
Okay.
Because you're gonna have trucks going in and out on the front of the
Unless you
garage.
move the fuel pump.
Yeah.
You gotta remember, we got 2 trailers that are parked not on our property right now that are going to end up on our parking lot somewhere.
Right.
Okay.
You mean behind?
So they're parked out behind our shed right now.
Well, and those are the things that I think Mount Carmel, if we said, because that part of their site plan doesn't really have anything. But also the benefit of the site plan is there's potential access to Bright Road, potential access. Well, there will be access to Emerald Parkway. So the other nice thing about this is it gives us multiple ingress and egress out of this site now that we didn't, that we obviously don't have right now.
I can't validate this, but my interpretation of the drawings they've got is that they're viewing this access off of sawmills for emergency vehicles only, ambulance, etc.
So Andy, what's Thursday? Mount Carmel's going before
Planning Commission.
Planning Commission?
For the conceptual, right?
Yeah, for conceptual only.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Mike.
We also talked, the fact that the police do park back here now to create some passageway to come in,
Hmm.
access the buildings through building 2. We haven't quite got all that worked out yet. But
There's little tweaks.
yeah, it's a work in progress. Right? So,
I'm glad they didn't ask for a jacuzzi or.
No, that's building-
That's
that's building
tweaks.
3.
That's the
Oh, they did. Trust me, they did.
the helipad, right?
Where is the swimming pool going? Just curious.
I'm waiting for the horse stalls.
Oh, that's a good point. We're done.
so if we could go down to slide 8. So this is this building. We're in this room. This is the garage space that we're looking at. There's some kind of multi-purpose room. And if we go to the next slide, we haven't really programmed this yet to really understand how it's going to work. I want to show some images of multi-purpose rooms, different seating arrangements, different ways to approach a multi-purpose room. But again, I think it's something we need to come up with, say, okay, what are we trying to accomplish here for these meetings, for public meetings? Is it for rent? Is there audio visual requirements? All of that has to get thought out. And then,
So Mike, I'm sorry for keeping interrupting. First of all, I think it's a great idea. I think it's really well needed or extremely needed for us. And obviously this will give you more space.
Yeah, I was assuming, is this become a bit like office space kind of this
Good.
section?
I think it could, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Open kind of.
Yeah, I think that through the process of looking at building two and, you know, when we're talking about meeting space and things like that, that, you know, just the lack of use of the space. But the cool thing is, you know, depending on the flooring type, we could leave the garage doors, you know, similar like you see the bars and things like that. Now you could open those garage. So like when you have a summer picnic, you could, you know, it could flow out into that space. There's a lot of opportunities to do with this. And it really comes down to the furniture. You just make the furniture movable. So it gives you a lot of flexibility to set up with whatever, you know, whatever the community is looking for and whatever we're looking for too.
So can I ask the structure of this building and building two and building three? Remind me, I thought that these were like pole barns that were enclosed or block buildings or.
Building 3 is a block building, it's
Okay.
a fortress. So
Okay.
you've got a fortress there. Building 2 is a pole barn, but it's freestanding.
Okay.
So you can gut everything inside, insulate, run all your new utilities, everything else very easily with that building. This building is again one of the original ones. It's pretty much a fortress as well, and doing the garage should not be a big issue. Now, we haven't gone into the in-depth of, you know, are there any major issues of what we're trying to do? But again, we're trying to work within the confines of being or Dublin and what we can and can't do. And we're still in the process, but so far, everything we've been talking about doing fits within our rights to be able to do under their code.
That
without
would seem to be a much
bringing-
more palatable option from a taxpayer perspective, but
Yeah, he'll get into the numbers
Yeah.
later, but it's significantly less money.
Well, and I got to tell you, you know, throughout this whole process, I guess my head was always just building two, but throughout this, I really like probably the most is the holding cells, the ID badge, the interview, the equipment, the salary port. I mean, you look at basically being able to kind of compartmentalize all that kind of stuff into one area. And plus now we have 2 holding cells, we have 2 interview rooms, we have an ID BAC, we have a fairly large evidence property. I mean, it's just, I think it sets up really well. And Chad, I said the same thing with Steve is, you know, I said throughout this whole process, I'm like, Steve, you can't look at this as today. You got to say, where am I going to be at in 5-10 years? You got to look at it through those lenses. And as long as, because we had a lot of discussion about how many sergeants, how many lieutenants, you know, not just now, but in the future. Like I said, the only area that I think needs probably a little massaging is the privacy room, squad room, because I'd still like to see that being a fairly, you know, active area, you know, with a kitchen and that sort of thing. Do we need that many, you know, do we need that many desks or that sort of thing? But I like the plan. I think, Mike, the modification of the locker rooms and that sort of thing, it's, I think it lays out pretty well.
Is there ever any thought about connecting building 1 and 2 somehow?
We've gone back and forth as to the necessity to do that or not do it, versus just an overhang that maybe covers the walkway, et cetera. It really comes down to the question of what purposes does building 3 serve now and in the future. And if you're going to do something with the road department, then it may not survive. But a lot of other things went into this. Like Chief told us that, you know, you bring in a juvenile and you've got an adult, you've got to have 2 holding tanks, separate and aside from each other, 2 interview rooms. So it gives them a lot of flexibility they don't have right now.
after those circle on the green parties. We need
I understand it's bad. I'm just. I agree, this is still the administration building, but that's somehow would tie into the middle of winter, it's a rainy day, because to come over here, they're making copies or do
Yeah.
and stuff, that somehow the buildings are connected.
We're really fighting and trying to work well within the code system of what you can and can't do without bringing your site up to 100%. Which, when you do that, when you trigger that, the cost become.
Well, could it even, I mean, jumping ahead, could it even be something like those just decorative things that you put over, you know, as just an exterior kind of,
Yeah, I
just to
think-
cover so people could walk? I mean, it doesn't have to be a structure.
I think the key here is phasing.
Yeah. Yeah,
We have to phase.
I get it.
Okay.
But you have to be prepared for that next phase.
Yeah,
Just have the conversation.
Yeah.
Sure.
When you phase things, it's not the same as doing them all.
That hence the word phase.
Got that part.
but I think it's important to think about,
But what's your next step? And you're prepared so you don't have to.
right,
Yeah.
think,
that's fine.
okay, if we're gonna connect it, whether we do or not, here's how we do it.
Where are we connecting and what does that look like?
Gotcha. So is the net ultimately that all of the office space, with the exception of police, all of the needed office space, zoning, admin is all in this building?
Right.
And then, you know, Ian, would you have office space up here or would you be
I would assume I'd be back there.
back there?
Yeah, assuming we
I
keep
wouldn't be
built,
away from the guys.
yeah, assuming building 3 becomes their building, then
Okay.
yeah, they
So
just stay
then-
back
then
here.
Zoning would be up
Zoning would be
here
staying here
and,
and the rest of us.
okay. Gotcha.
And Michelle, on to that point, the next step is, you know, if everybody feels comfortable with this, it would then, let's look at building 3, you know, then we would sit down with Ian, kind of go through, you know, the same thing we did with, you know, the police, is then look at building 3. But we need to dig in with Dublin a little bit because, I mean, ultimately what I'd love to see is a, you know, a metal building that replaces building 3. We just tear down that whole area in the back. And, you know, then Ian and the guys are able to pull their trucks in. They have their offices back there, you know, it just kind of replaces that whole back section with something new. But again, that's working with Dublin to, we just got some hurdles we got to go through.
If that were to take place, then that would open up the sort of the front and the bay half of building 2 then, right?
Yeah, correct. Because we could almost we would almost be able to store all the police cars under roof in building 2, you know, if we could somehow get that to happen in the back.
But we really think that by taking care of the police department in building 2, it gives us a lot of flexibility
Mhm.
on what occurs in the next phases. Because we take care of a lot of space in here, with the multi-purpose room, et cetera, which is easily done. That's not getting into a permit issue or anything like that. Then building 3 just may be a matter of time and, you know, what are the absolute needs versus, you know, again, it's a very solid building. I mean, building 3, I think it's the newest building that's here.
It is.
So.
So Joe, and the multi-purpose room, to think it through a little bit, but that may be it's something we probably want to permit because it's changing use. It's going to an assembly use. So that's going to affect parking requirements.
Yeah.
Again, so that's something to work through with Dublin. Understand what they-
Ian, you had a question, right? Or you're gonna say
You said
something? What about?
What's that? Thought about taking more of the front garage instead of extending back into that laundry area. I mean, 'cause I don't believe in the future, there's gonna be enough room if building 3 comes down to house what we need. To get trucks in and out, have a salt bar.
Yeah.
Is this what you and I were?
I'm sorry.
No, not that, not the.
So-
Revised plan by itself.
Okay, let me try and dig it back out again, if I can find it.
In this,
My screen.
Talking about this area here,
Yeah, instead of going back that way, going another bay this way at least.
this way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's doable. In fact,
I mean, it opened up the
so,
front
I mean,
for
you can
more
get right other
parking.
bay up, yeah, we were just trying to keep it to one bed.
Yeah,
But if
Well-
we did that, we could potentially have a 2-car salvage
Right.
point.
And that would solve,
Or,
another issue for us is storage, and if we have that, something we have to do a search warrant on vehicle wise, so that would, I already talked about this the other day.
Hey, Ian, I'm sorry, help me understand what that
you're-
benefits you. So
Well-
I'm not picturing it.
this is the back part. Like if you cut the wall in half, our garage in half,
Yeah,
it's just going back into where we have laundry. That's part where we park our leaf machines and stuff right now is right
Got
back
you.
in that area. Once they take that bay for the Sally Port, we lose most of our flat area in the garage where we make catch basin is. The only other area is right in the back part where they've got their, I can't read it.
The property room.
Yeah. In that part where we park our leaf machines
Gotcha.
now.
okay.
you got a stair coming in there
You don't
too.
have a conference room in there of any kind, do you?
I'm still,
That was what he was talking about, the multi-use room.
What's that?
there,
it's easy
garage.
to confuse me, you know,
But
so
if it,
say this one more time.
that's a concern if it's not done at the same time.
Instead of using one bay,
Okay,
like where they're at for the Sally Port,
okay,
coming and you taking the second bay as well.
okay,
And letting us keep that area. And it's also, in the future, I don't believe building us a single pole barn, we're gonna be able to get one large enough for what we need to get all our
Get all
equipment
your
in and out of. Back there, we're building 3 is.
so you
With
would,
parking and salt, we still need to get into a salt barn, so we can't go all the way up against it.
so you would put another Sally Port next to the
Whatever
first
they-
one.
Yeah.
Or the
We would
evidence
take the
room or
two
whatever.
garages.
the-
We
Yeah,
would take the two
towards the
garages
front.
close to the
The-
building.
He's saying move the
Oh,
evidence room.
Yeah,
to the
move the-
front of the
Yeah.
garage.
Okay,
Yeah, I mean, I would study that, and I mean, it may be we do
There's a,
either side port here and here, or one here and here. It just depends on,
Yeah,
there's an oil water separator right in there where you guys are gonna have to rerun.
yeah, we've got that covered, so, yeah. You brought that up, and
Yeah.
Well,
it's,
it's,
we included in the estimate,
okay.
so.
So like I said, I think the next thing is Ian is sitting down with you and kind of going through the same process with building 3 to see what the pros and cons are in terms of, again, this is just pencil on paper. It's not like we're doing anything. It's not, but you got to go through this planning process and see what the ripple effect is going to be. So the next step would be to sit down with you, look at building 3. What are your needs? What are the things that you're going to have to do? And then come up with a plan that accommodates you in the operations. But again, is more so with you is the near term versus the long term. And then the last piece, I mean, as it affects building 1, I think at this point, it's just, that looking at that multi-purpose room, I think there's a lot of benefit to it, but like Mike said, what does that do to our site if we change that from a garage to a multi-purpose and then, go from there. But, there's some discussions that we got to have with Dublin, because we're in there. And then also Mount Carmel. I mean, they called us and said, hey, we want to be good neighbors. So, what's the opportunity on that as well?
So, I mean, the net bottom line, without Ian's needs being met, nothing's gonna move. I mean, we're gonna make sure it meets everybody's requirements, not move forward based on this guy's wish list over here.
Yeah.
It's everybody.
It's all about you, right?
it's always about me.
Ever since you got those horses.
I know.
Just saying.
Just a quick, in terms of second order, so how much bigger is that change meeting room?
If you go to this slide, we can look at that. So
It's about double, right?
it's about double.
That's what I was thinking. It's the same depth, but it's twice as long.
Well, it's actually deeper.
Yeah, because of our hallway.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's right, 'cause you got this area right here.
Yeah.
But the back of the building's all the same. probably.
Probably need to add restrooms
Right.
and,
Good point. Because you wouldn't open this area.
Right.
You're having a meeting.
Right.
I think you quarter that all off. I mean, those
Yeah.
restrooms are probably handicap accessible right now.
Mhm.
That we have.
I mean, it's a
You
good
need to
sized
just
space.
have those doors locked or something and.
Yeah.
yeah, I would think you'd want separate access here, so
Mhm.
you can lock this up.
Right.
It's good to see it. It's really helpful. I appreciate you coming in.
Whenever you need me to come in, I can do it. So.
Mike, did you have, I think Joe may have mentioned, it. We have figures or we?
Go ahead. Talk.
Do you want me to pull up what Andy sent to me?
Yeah, if you could.
Let's see.
Just remember, Joe's line of credit has a limit on it.
I'm glad.
Those wives, you know.
Oops, where'd I go?
You want to give your disclaimer first?
Sure.
If I can't read it, it can't, from here. It can't.
There's no back door there.
So
Come up here
we
and see the
put
numbers.
together an estimate. I have a person I go to for estimating because he's a contractor. He does estimating for a living. And so he has a better database than what we would have. So, but at this stage, you know, we have very, very preliminary drawings. So we tend to put higher contingencies, higher overhead and profit numbers in. So he has actually put a 25% general contractor's overhead and profit and a 25% contingency. And with that, the what we're showing there is coming up to about $1,552,000. And then we also.
Is that just building two?
That's just building two, but yeah. Just the improvements we're showing, and there was another almost 16,000 to relocate the oil separator.
So I don't think I have the,
So it's like $1 million with the contingencies added onto it.
No, that $1,552,000.
here's another one coming, Mary.
Contingency, so.
These are the 25%.
Wait, I'm sorry, 1,500,000 includes,
Typically, if this was a project that was moving forward today based on pricing, the profit and overhead should not exceed 15%. The contingency should be around 10%.
Okay.
So they build in a tremendous amount of buffer here.
Okay.
Early, because we don't know when this is gonna be.
Right.
Buffer and phase.
those are our favorite
You're
words.
starting to pick up on the whole business here.
I don't like those articles in the paper that says, the architect estimated this, but it's way over, you know. We'd rather be a little on the high side.
Mhm.
So, but
Mary's
it's
getting
a
hers.
detailed estimate. It's not a, you know, it's beyond the ballpark, I think. It's got real quantities.
This is building two. Including the oil, the 16K for the oil separator or no? So we're at about 1.6.
Yeah, I can. I'll just give you.
I'll email this to you and I, and so you have it, okay?
That's.
Oh, Okay,
And then the oil.
okay, I got it here.
Sector.
I see it.
Yeah, how many square feet?
Oh, so this is,
That's what I was trying to figure out. Mike should know
Okay, so I just
Okay.
got the one, did we
that.
just get,
Minus.
we just got the back page, okay.
Right. We make it, I'll miss it.
Mike, did you, in his estimate, did he?
yeah,
figure out
Mary's
per
getting
square
them.
foot
oh,
cost?
she's getting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Overall, I don't think so.
It's $15,000.
Yeah, I was thinking,
How do you do that?
$15,000.
Yeah, I knew that wasn't gonna
Sign
be
me
it.
up.
Yeah,
Mike,
right.
you have the drawing of the total square footage of the existing building.
Let's call it 4,700 square.
47.
This obviously is not included in community, because this is.
Right.
No.
That's what you're going into.
and we have,
Yeah.
47.
Beth, we have the gentleman come in at the money talk.
Yes, I spoke with Mike Burns. He's a gentleman that helped Genoa determine their financing. He gave me a short questionnaire to fill out, and then I'd like for him to come in the next meeting, as long as everyone's good with that. He's just going to kind of explain what he does, what the process is, what under home rule. There's caps based on what our revenue is. So he'll kind of run y'all through just a kind of a 50,000 foot view of that.
I'm coming up with $330 a square foot, so.
Okay.
Thanks, Mary.
The other thing to remember about these numbers is this is, everything is new. HVAC, wiring, plumbing,
Insulation.
insulation,
Windows.
everything, windows, doors, all brand new. let's
No,
do this,
I'm good.
let's
Thank
do
you.
that, do this,
So-
do that.
I emailed that to you guys too.
point, stating the likely obvious, we need to be really, if we're thinking that we might move forward with this, we need to be really mindful of what we're spending money on, you know, on the existing stuff today, right? I mean, we don't need to just do the least amount of maintenance on the HVAC and all of that stuff until we're gonna replace everything, right?
And Mr. Burns is gonna give us all the options, I mean, all the sources, right?
Right. Well, you know, that would be specific to the townships. So,
So,
I mean, he's not going to be able to get to the nitty gritty until we have some firmer
Right.
numbers, but just to give you a gist of, you know, what's available and this, that, and the other.
No boat, no helicopter.
Yeah, Steve.
I
I know.
was going to pay for some of it, just saying.
Worthington's got a boat.
Well, I mean, yeah.
Use their boat. Little boat there.
Yeah.
We'll just get you a sticker where you can put Perry on it if we need to.
We've got a couple of old ones. We got the eagle on it.
There you go. See, put that on there.
So what would it take, or what does it take to determine what can be done with building 3 for Ian's purposes?
well, go ahead.
I'm gonna jump in. The idea here was to see if we had a comfort level with where we are so far. Then the next place, Danny jump in, the next place would be to sit down with Ian, listen to the comments that were brought up here tonight, and address all of those. Talk with him, talk about if you're gonna move and take more of this space and leave more of that space. And even Ian just said, is there a way to add on building 2 rather than building new pole line? So a lot of good ideas come out of this, so
Yeah,
I think the next step is for us to regroup again, go through all of this, and then come back in and try to better gauge the phases before we move any further on hard drawings or anything with this.
When do you see holding anybody, any timeline here?
When do we see what?
When do we see this? Is this a 23 project?
Oh, I think it could,
Or the
I
end
think
of
it could be
22?
I think it could be a 22 project.
Okay,
I do. I mean, I don't think, I don't, because of the threshold that we're holding at, I'm saying phase 1 would be a 22.
okay.
Okay. If we bump that threshold, we really get into a lot more issues.
I think the biggest challenge over Ryan is the building equipment. I don't think the office space is that it's
It's the equipment as well.
equipment and,
Maintenance.
you know. Salt bar and keeping things under cover and all that. I think that's a big reason why our roads don't last so long.
Exactly.
It's undercover.
Great.
I think our police cars would last longer if they were on cover.
Yeah.
Every 3 years.
Yeah, that's true.
So we're just saying she wants some of his budget.
I've been trying to take it.
Okay.
He buys Mary lunch too often.
So Andy, do you have any addition to that? I think that's the next phase.
Yeah, I agree.
It looks good for step 1.
Well, again, if y'all think anything in particular notes or anything like that, please just copy us on it as you think about it. And any other questions, copy us on it. And when we get together, we can address everything. And then next time we get together, hopefully we can say, here's a plan, and whether you like it or not, we'll go.
Well, just make sure you don't select colors without that
Yeah.
guy.
We're waiting on.
Yeah.
Colors are.
That's Mr. Roper's, he's liaison of decor.
Trying to get furnishings for the new place, right?
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. This is honestly very helpful. I appreciate it.
Welcome.
Hey, Chief, can you, when we wrap up tonight, can you talk a little bit about Genoa's citizen advisory?
Citizen Advisory Board.
That was part of the discussion with Genoa. When we talked about there. You guys talked about it.
Genoa has a citizen advisory committee that they use for their whole township. They have a 15-member panel. And if I'm not mistaken, some of them are kind of like liaisons where they work with road, they work with police, they work with fire, but the whole committee kind of advises the board of trustees and how things that they want to see in the neighborhoods and their communities, and also with the departments in the township.
Well, they were talking, he was talking about that when we had the last presentation,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and like he said, that's how you get community involvement. He said, when you talk about, the police building, okay, we need to redo this. He said, if you have community members that see the need, he said, it's much easier to say, this is why we're doing what we're doing. And again, they're not just for the police. They do their fire departments, they do their road department, they do zoning administration, parks, they advise on everything. They're just kind of involved to help, like you said, when it comes to if you ever have to do a levy. They're people, they're the ones that are attending meetings and listening to why we're doing what we're doing, and then they spread that message to the community. So I personally think it's a good idea. So
Well, I mean, I guess I would like, because mainly, it started with their police department
yes,
as the ones, them coming to the board of trustees saying, based upon our conversations with staff and our knowledge of blah, 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 you really need to do something for your staff. And that's what their message was to them. And I just think that maybe we come up with a draft proposal for the board of trustees about what that group would look like, but what their role is. And I'd ask that we not make this up, we'll just steal it from Vanilla.
oh, yeah, I have.
You have it, right?
I have
Yeah.
some information, how they put it together and the processes for starting it. And it really comes down to what does the board and input as far as how many members. They have a 15-member panel, but they also have 25,000 residents.
Right. 15's a big number.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's a matter of how do you want to, they don't have, their panel's not made up of any particular neighborhoods. They just open up to anybody that's a resident. So it would have to be decided, how do you want representatives from neighborhoods? Do you want to just, as Perry Township as a whole? Those are things that we would have to kind of figure out. The number.
I mean, recognizing we're gonna talk about it later, but I would think that we would want to make sure we have representation from each section, because the needs can be totally different.
Right.
And that's what they did. They had, folks that were older, folks that were younger, people who had families, people that were retired, and then different
Right.
areas of Genoa.
I'll put that together.
Okay.
What they use for how they put it together.
Yeah, if you want to send it to Mary, and then she can just put in the Dropbox, or I'm gonna take a look. Thank you.
Oh, this wasn't your meeting, by the way.
Oh, no. This all goes against the Yankees. Anything else before we adjourn? Move to adjourn.
Second.
Vote?
Yes.
Yes.